All right, I'm here to talk to you about burglary. I've been doing these cases now for about 26 years, Los Angeles County, pretty much all over California. I think when you talk about burglary, because it is a serious crime, obviously you want to first define what you're going to talk about. Are you going to talk about first-degree burglary or second-degree burglary? And that's pretty much the first thing that I put up here. I'm going to mainly focus on first-degree burglary because I think that's where the most issues come from. But just to hit on second-degree burglary, that has to do with somebody going into a store, a Macy's, a Ralph's, stealing stuff in the store. The prosecutors obviously have to prove that you had the intent to steal before you entered the store. So for example, if you go into a Macy's and you have cutters in your pocket to cut off the security sensors, that would obviously be evidence that you were burglarizing the store, just versus a grand theft type situation if you took like $1,000 worth of stuff. The difference between burglary and grand theft has to do with that planning beforehand. But I don't want to talk about second-degree burglary too much because a lot of times when I get these second-degree burglary cases, I'm able to do a lot of things for people because the public has spoken, propositions have been passed, and basically the public has said, look, prosecutors and judges, we don't want people in prison who are stealing from cars, stealing from department stores. We want violent felons in prison, and that's why I want to talk to you about first-degree burglary. That has to do with going into somebody's home, and now judges and prosecutors and legislatures and even the public at large don't like people who go into other people's home. If you get convicted of a first-degree burglary, it's a strike, so it'll be on your record for life here in California. You're typically going to get prison time for that. You're going to have to show unusual circumstances in a first-degree burglary case to stay out of prison. I find myself fighting these cases all the time. I know what the factors are to try and avoid that prison sentence. You got to be young. You got to have no criminal record. Nobody should be home. If somebody's home, you got a person present, good luck trying to get a situation where you're not getting a prison sentence. Obviously, a lot of property can't be taken. The people got to get the property back. There's a whole list of different factors. So I got to look at your case, whether it's you, whether it's a loved one, when we're talking about first-degree burglary. And of course, I'm going to try and avoid a conviction for first-degree burglary because with that conviction comes so many bad things that a lot of times I'm trying to get a different charge if the prosecutors have the evidence to prove you went into somebody's house without their permission, and that's your first-degree burglary. If somebody's present, you serve 85% of the prison time. It's a violent felony. If somebody's not present, you serve 80% of the prison time. Both are very serious because we're talking about a person's castle. Judges, prosecutors, the legislature, they all have homes. They don't want people going inside the homes because obviously it invades their privacy. And not only that, it's very dangerous. Weapons can be used, somebody can get hurt, shot, stabbed, whatever the case may be. So if you or a loved one is facing a first-degree burglary charge, you've come to the right place. Set up a meeting with me, let's talk about it. One of the things we're going to talk about is the elements. What do they need to prove a burglary, a first-degree residential burglary? And the definition's been the same in general since I went to law school 26 years ago. The breaking and entering the dwelling house of another with the intent to commit a felony therein. Now that's an interesting definition. Just that last part. You could break into somebody's house with the intent to rape a woman, for example. The woman's not there, you leave, you take nothing. Is that a burglary? Yes, it is, because when you broke in, you had the intent to rape the woman. That's the problem. That's the felony. Most of the time, people are breaking in to steal. I've had a lot of cases where people break in, they don't realize somebody's there, the person yells, threatens to shoot them, whatever, and then they run away, they take nothing. Is that a burglary? Yes, it is. You don't have to take the property, it's just breaking in. I've even had cases where people are putting little gadgets in there, trying to unlock the door, they break the window, they can't get in, they run away, it's captured on video, a neighbor sees, the cops grab them. Is that a burglary? Yes, it is, because you broke in. Any type of breaking. That's another case. I had a big case in Van Nuys that I did that I was actually able to win. And the whole issue was whether my client broke the plane of the house. So you really have to look at these cases. What about if you go into a back bedroom? Or if you go into a back garage that's attached from the house? That can also be a burglary if somebody's living there. The prosecutors, the legislature have really stretched out this definition of burglary. So if you've got an issue with whether or not you even committed a burglary in the first place, you've come to the right place. I've battled these cases for many years. I know what the deciding factors are. The next thing, we got to talk about penalties. What are you looking at if you get convicted of a residential burglary? A residential burglary, if nobody's present, you're looking at a strike. You'll serve 80% of any time, and you could probably be looking at up to 6 years in prison. A lot of times I'm able to get people probation if I could show that it's a unique case. In other words, it's not your normal dangerous burglary where thousands of dollars worth of property is being taken. People are being held hostage. I mean, you can come up with a bunch of different scenarios. But if it's a weak burglary, the person has no record, they've got a life, other things on the ball, then we can make an argument that they really shouldn't have to swallow that burglary charge. If somebody's present when a person breaks in, obviously that's much more serious. Now you're talking about a violent felony, 85%, up to 6 years in prison, and then there could be other charges depending on what happened. So if you or a loved one's charged with burglary, all the marbles are on the line. Come to somebody like me. I stand at the ready to help you and to try and get you probation if we can't beat the case in a jury trial. The next thing we're talking about is negotiating versus a jury trial. What I tell my clients in these cases is, look, if they've got evidence that you committed a burglary and you know that you did something wrong, why would you risk going to trial, paying an attorney money, the stress, the anguish, and you're going to get a harsher sentence than if you would have negotiated if you get convicted. So I think that's the way you have to look at it. If you didn't do this burglary, if you're innocent, if something else is going on here, obviously don't take a deal. Take the case to trial. Hire somebody like me who's done countless trials, battled countless burglary charges, and been successful in the right cases. That's how you decide whether you go to trial or whether you negotiate. The last thing I would say is win. What is a win in the burglary case? Well, if they've got the evidence against you, a win, for example, would be you don't have to plead to a burglary charge and you don't have to go to prison. You don't get a strike on your record. You don't serve 85% of the time. So that's an example of a win. If you're innocent, you didn't do it, they don't have the evidence against you, then obviously a not guilty verdict is a win in a jury trial. If you need help, if you or a loved one is charged with burglary in Los Angeles County, pick up the phone, call somebody who's been fighting for their clients for 26 years on the defense side. I've worked for the DA's office early in my career. I've worked for a Superior Court judge, but I choose to defend people. I choose to defend liberty. I choose to defend your rights and do everything I can to get you out of the criminal justice system.